Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today's video is going to be about how I built this wall behind me. I'm going to walk you through the video today on exactly how I built it. Another project in my basement. As you can see behind me, I am working on a Pinterest geometric accent wall that my wife has found that she really thinks looks very nice, and actually I happen to agree with her. She found some pictures on Pinterest and showed the pictures to me and said, hey, make that. So happy wife, happy life, right? If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I have a new project pretty much every week, sometimes a couple videos a week. So if you're interested in home projects or working on your own cars, consider subscribing and following along. I just got back from the hardware store, which I think is my second home at this point. And I have picked up 12-foot sections of, it actually says it's 2 by 1, but it's 3/4 of an inch by about 1.5 inches. And these will be cut down into pieces and put up on this wall. I did this the old-fashioned way with painter's tape, and I used the low-tech version, and part of it has already fallen and peeled away. But what you can see here is there'll be an additional piece that goes all the way across, and then there's another one that goes kind of up there that way. But you get the general idea. This is kind of what it's going to look like. There's going to be a TV pretty much right in the middle of that wall, and it'll look really nice when it's all done, I think. So I've made some elementary school drawings of what that wall is going to look like, and that way I can get a rough measurement of how many of these actual pieces of trim that I need and where they go. It'll all go on this wall here. I get them laid out. Also, I got a new tool, and because I'm a geek for tools, I'm going to show it to you. It's a Bosch. It's a laser, and it shoots a laser in 3 directions. It's actually made for tile, but what it does is it shoots a laser at 3 directions. So you can see it gives you a perfect 90, and it also gives you a 45. So what I'm going to do is take this. Oh, the other thing that's really cool about it too is that it shoots it on the ground. It also shoots it up against the wall. Very cool. So I'm actually going to get this fixed up against the wall and then shoot the lasers, so that way I have a perfect 45 degree. All in all, the angles that I'm going to use 45s. So it'll be 45s going this way, and then it'll be 90 degrees from there, but it'll be 2 45s, and then I'll have another that is a perfectly horizontal line that are going this direction. All right, let me show you the tools I got for this. Miter box. All right, so I got my compressor over here. I'm getting ready to fire this thing up. It makes a lot of noise, so I'm not going to do it until after I show everything to you. So I got the compressor. I got this Bostitch brad nailer, and then I'm using 18 gauge brad nails that are 1 1/4 inch. So if you look at my piece of trim, I can measure it for you. So the trim is 1.5 inches by 3/4. That means the brad nail will go 1/2 inch into the wall, which is good, so that way it doesn't go too far in and actually stick to anything. So what I'm going to do is start making measurements and then tack this stuff up into the wall. We'll be ready to go. Alright, so I'm having my wife actually help me out here. She's holding the laser level for me so I can get a perfect 45 degree on the wall. I'm using this straight edge to make sure that I can actually draw those lines in pencil, so I'll know exactly where to put all of my pieces of trim, and they'll be exactly straight, just the way that I want them. Alright, I finished another step. I actually used my laser level to lay out all the grid lines across this whole wall behind me. I'll see if I can actually show you. I used the laser, and then I actually drew it on with a pencil. You can see I got all the pencil lines drawn up. So now I know exactly where to lay each one of these pieces of wood. So now all I got to do is make some cuts and start placing these on. Alright, I got the entire border put up now, as you can see, all the way around. All the way on the top, all the way down the side and all the way on the bottom border. Got a little bit of glue dripping. I'll have to clean that up. But it's looking pretty good. We're getting all our lines put in. Everything's going swell. Who uses the word swell? That's weird. I don't think I've said the word swell for the last 15, 20, 35, 75 years. Anyway, it's looking good. Let's get to it. Keep going. So this is the very first piece of trim. I'm actually using the tape measure here to get a rough measurement so that I can actually go and make a cut. I'll bring that piece over now and then put it into place. Then I use my pencil to actually make the measurement for the final cut. That way I'll have it exactly where I need it to be. So this is the one piece of wall that I have to work around this clean out space. So I'm going to put this piece back in over here and then lay out this piece of wood so it goes around it. Alright, so what you can see me doing here is I've now got my cut piece in place. I'm using my pencil to make marks on both the right side trim as well as the top side trim, so that way I can actually go make that cut to turn this one piece of wood into two pieces of wood. Now I've got two pieces that'll go around it. So I'll be fitting these ones in now, and I'm kind of test fitting it so you can see a little bit here what I was actually working on. So now it fits perfectly around that clean out. So now what I'm doing is I'm putting some wood glue on the back of that piece so it'll adhere a little bit better to the wall, and then putting some brad nails in. That way it holds itself nice and tight and straight. The tricky bit about this one is this is one piece of wood that's now in two separate, which is why you can see why having those lines drawn on the wall made it very important to have those lines drawn on the wall so it's nice and straight now. So what you can see I'm doing here, I got the first piece fitted already. I'm actually cutting these pieces, and before I get them actually put up against the wall, and you can see I've got my little line, and you can see on here I got the line drawn, so I know exactly where it needs to go. So I cut the piece with a 45 on the end, and then I get it fitted up like this and put it kind of where it's supposed to be on this line. As you can see, it's on that line there. And then I have it cut so it's just a little bit too long. That way I can give it a kind of a trim at the very end to get it all in, the right spot. But that's what I'm doing, just to kind of get it fit up without wasting too much material. Also, what's smart, it's important to put the little X's on your lines. As you can see, I drew little X's. That way, when I go back and I'm marking on my lines, I know which side the piece of wood is supposed to go on. So make sure you mark with the X which side your trim is going to go on. Alright, so moving on to the second piece here. All the other trim pieces get a little bit easier now that I didn't have to cut one of them into two pieces. So I'm just getting my measurement. I'm going over here to make my cut. I'll bring the piece of wood back when I'm ready. I'll get it kind of roughly put into place, apply the wood glue so that way it stays in spot, and then I'll tack it up with some brad nails. Then what I do is I move on to the third piece. I do the same thing. I get my rough measurement, go get a new piece, or I get my rough measurement, make my cut, then come back and get the final cut. I put everything into the right spot, put the wood glue on it, and then brad nail it all into place again. So you get the idea. I just keep doing this over and over and over again until I get all my pieces in place. Something I wanted to point out, you can see the benefit of actually having drawn all the lines with a laser. I ended up having to use real wood. This trim is actually pine, not MDF. So the pine is warped slightly because these pieces of trim are 12 feet long. So not everything is perfectly straight. So when you draw your laser line, you make sure you draw that perfectly straight so that way when you're actually putting the wood up, you can adjust it all the way down. You can adjust it all the way down to make, you can adjust the piece of trim as you go to make sure it's all the way on that line. So that's what I was just doing right there. All right, I got all the trim up on the wall over here. I gotta say I'm really excited. This looks really nice. I've never done anything like this before. I'm actually really proud of how this thing turned out, so take a look. Looks great. I'm done for the day because it's pretty late. I gotta go put my kids to bed. It's already dark out. But as you can see behind me, it looks really nice. All right, it is the next morning. It's time to get after it with the wood filler and the caulking. So I'll probably be spending the next hour-ish, maybe hour and a half, filling all the little holes that I created and filling in the little cracks between the pieces of wood where they meet. I'll let that dry for a few hours and then I'll go back, sand it, and then be ready for paint. If you're thinking about doing something like this yourself, just do it, because you know, I've literally never tried to do anything like this before, and I was concerned, you know, a little bit nervous about what the result would look like. But as you can see behind me, it's actually turned out quite well. And the materials were not that expensive. Total invested in this project by the end will probably be like $100, so in some time. Anyhow, let's get after it. See you in a little bit. All right, I just finished kind of wood filling all the holes. Still drying over on this end. Still drying. But pretty soon I'll be able to start sanding this all down. I'll give it a little bit more time. And then I'll be able to caulk and we'll be ready to go. So when you start sanding, make sure you have some kind of breathing protection, either a respirator like I'm wearing here, or at least an N95 mask to kind of keep yourself from breathing in all the dust particles. But what I'm doing here is I'm actually just sanding down flat, so that way when I go over and paint later, I don't have any of those spots that stick out and look like, you know, domed mounds where I actually put the wood filler in. So take your time to do this, make sure you do it right, because the finish and prep work is key. All right, sanding is done. It made a huge mess. I'll give a tip. When you're actually when you're wood puttying or spackling or whatever it is you're doing, I think I went a little too heavy and ended up having to do a whole lot of extra sanding. You don't need to go crazy with all the wood filler, because I ended up doing a whole lot of extra sanding I probably didn't need to do. So time to go get cleaned up. I'm going to vacuum up all the dust I just made and we're going to start caulking. So you can see me vacuuming here. I'm using a shop vac. It's really important. This is also another key step in doing the prep work. Make sure you get all the dust up before you start caulking and painting. Alright, I got all the caulking done now. As you can see here, all the pieces are all caulked up. Now I just need to wait for it to dry. This is the caulk that I used. Alright, it's actually a number of days later. I got busy. I got kids and stuff, but I'm finally ready to start painting. I've gotten the wall kind of cleaned up now. I've wiped it down of all the dust from sanding and all that other kind of good stuff, and I've taped off a little bit of the area. So now I'm going to start cutting it in. I actually have a couple of other places, like there's a wall over there and then a wall down this way. Those two walls I will also be doing painting today, so I wanted to kind of get it all done in one shot. I'm using Benjamin Moore. Let's see. Benjamin Moore Regal Select. The color is called Kendall Charcoal. Still not a fan of the Benjamin Moore paints, but anyway, I already paid for it, so let's get cracking. Well, this part is about as exciting as you would expect it to be, and it's like watching paint dry, so it's not a whole lot of fun. But what I'm doing here is I'm using a paintbrush to get the sides of the trim painted, to get the paint kind of even. What I ended up doing, I didn't film it, but what I ended up doing after this though is I went back with a roller, a 3.5 inch roller, and painted over the faces of all the trim, and that helped to give it a really kind of even feel that matched with what the paint on the wall looked like as well. It turned out really nicely. Well, there you have it. That is the first coat of paint on. It looks really good. I still got all the painter's tape around it because I'm actually going to go back and fill in the middle areas and just touch it up a little bit here and there, but this wall turned out really nice. I used 1 inch by 2 inch trim. I ended up boxing the trim all the way around because that's what my wife wanted. So you can see it framed in all the way around the edge. I think it looked pretty good with the crown molding. Instead of having the trim pieces go up here and then just kind of disappear into the wall, I think it looks a little bit better framed in. Yeah, but it actually turned out beautifully. I changed a couple of these outlets to black. I'm actually going to do that with all of them. I did that one down there. I'm going to change this one and that one to black also. That way everything kind of disappears in the wall. So this is the finished product. The wall is 16 feet wide by about almost 9 feet tall, but I have the crown molding at the top that makes it drop down a little bit. I actually started with these outlets being white, so I ended up switching these out for black covers because I think it actually makes the wall a little bit nicer. It looked a little bit odd having the white outlet covers. Yeah, I'm really proud of how this wall turned out. It's actually my favorite room now in the whole house, even though the basement isn't even finished yet. But if you're interested in doing a wall like this in your house, it actually seems very daunting, but it actually wasn't that bad at all. I finished this over a number of days, probably about 6 hours, maybe 7 hours of labor over probably 2 or 3 different days, where I just went little by little. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. I encourage you to try and do something like this at your own house. So make sure to subscribe and follow along on all the rest of my projects. I'll see you in the next video.